Hmm. Live. Yun. Teka. Pupunta. Yung ano, chat. Okay. Not now. Pop-out chat. And tas close. Ayan. Nanonood na tayo ng Nitro Rad.
Yo, so I just saw Detective Pikachu, and I figured I'd do like a quick little video, kind of spilling my thoughts out on it. This is going to be completely unscripted. I'm not going to like put too much time into this because I'm working on something else right now, and I'd rather put it into that. So this is all coming straight from the heart. It's more so coming straight from the fart. It's coming out my ass. But either way, I saw the movie. I figured I'd talk about what I thought of it. I already talked a little bit about what I thought of it on Twitter, but I know only like a small fraction of my audience follows me on Twitter, so I figured doing a YouTube thing might be a better way of like letting people know whether or not it's worth seeing, I guess, because I know there's been a lot of debate over whether or not this is a good movie. Because when it wasn't out yet, the Rotten Tomatoes score came out and it was a 70%, and everybody was like freaking out, like, "Oh, this is the first good video game movie." And then there's people being like, "Actually, the Animal Crossing movie was good. The Professor Layton movie was good." Just to clarify, when people say video game movie, they usually mean they're saying it's the first good live action Hollywood video game to film adaptation. And honestly, after seeing it, I'd say, yeah, it probably is the first good one. A lot of people would argue Mortal Kombat, but I've never seen that movie, so I don't know anything about it. So, yeah, as somebody that is big into video games and also big into movies, I think what I thought about it, I don't want to sound like narcissistic here, but what I thought about it might mean a little bit more to some people than, what these faceless critics who contributed to a percentage are. Because in the end, I think that percentage is a little bit superficial. I mean, it's just a number that represents how many critics liked the movie. It's not like the objective meter on how much you're gonna like it, right? So, yeah, I decided to go see it. And I'm not gonna pretend I'm like the biggest Pokemon fan. I'm not really that big into Pokemon anymore. I was as a little kid, like I had the toys, I watched the show. I never really played many of the main series games. I think I only played through Yellow and Silver way back. But other than that, I've only really played a lot of spin-offs. Like, I remember enjoying Hey You Pikachu as a kid. I don't know why. That game's bad, but I liked it when I was young. I'll still die on the hill that Pokemon Puzzle League is the best Pokemon game. Fight me if you want. I don't care. I also really liked Pokemon Mystery Dungeon in middle school. That's probably like the newest one I played. But yeah, I more so wanted to see this movie as like a piece of pop culture, because as somebody that really loves video games and really cares about movies, it was really interesting to me, the idea of seeing what might be the first decent video game movie, blah blah blah. Let's get into it. So right out of the gate, I thought it was okay. It was pretty good. I don't think it was like fantastic. It wasn't like great, but it was competent. And I think that sentiment kind of holds a lot more, weight, considering what this was. Like, if it was just any random, completely original movie from Hollywood and I came out of it thinking, that was okay, B minus, I probably would never think about it again. But the fact that this is like a video game movie and I come out of it being like, yeah, B minus, I'd probably say B minus or C plus. I think that has a lot more weight to it. Because we're in a world where we have zero faith in these things being good, and the fact that like you can go into this and see what you want and enjoy it, I think that's a very valuable and important thing. So let's kind of get into what I did like about it, what I didn't like about it. And I'm not gonna do any spoilers. No spoilers in this at all. I'm just kind of gonna, generally go through some things that I cared for, some things I think that could have been done a lot better, especially since I know they're doing a sequel, and a sequel, hopefully it'll be better. Hopefully they kind of tackle some of these things I didn't care for. So yeah, firstly, the movie starts with a guy trying to catch a Pokemon. And I think that was a really good way of establishing like what this world is. Even if you are familiar with the world of Pokemon, seeing how these rules work in live action, I think was really good. And I thought the scene was like, it was funny, it was a good job of kind of establishing what the character is like, how he feels about this world, how he feels about the things he's doing. And then he gets on the train, and then there's just a video screen that's just like, this is the world of Pokemon. And that part might feel a little bit redundant to people that do know about it, but I think it did do a good job of establishing this world. And that just brings me to a point where I'm like, I keep seeing these critics being like, if you don't know anything about Pokemon, you're not gonna understand this movie. That's a crock of shit. I think that intro did a decent job of kind of bringing people who aren't familiar with it up to speed. One thing I know a lot of people were concerned about was the CG, especially myself. Like, I think Pikachu looks fantastic. His model is great. He looks like he belongs there, and he blends to the world really well. But the thing is, like, Pokemon are a cartoon that was never meant to be realistic, and the second you make them into realistic looking things, they start to look a little weird. So and it's kind of interesting because when you look at that trailer, when you see those models in a vacuum without like the context of a feature-length film, you're probably going to be like, I don't like it. And I've seen a lot of people being like, I don't like it, like the way Charizard looks weird, Greninja looks weird. But when you sit down and you're watching a full-length movie that has that throughout the whole thing, your brain kind of just accepts it after 10 minutes. Like, you're always going to know they're CG characters. Your brain's not going to get fooled. You're not going to believe that those are real things. But you're like, this is a movie. Those are movie characters. So it's fine. What's most important, and I think they did nail this, was the interactions between the real people and the CG characters. And while they didn't look like real life like animals, the way they interacted, it felt like they were really there, and I think that's what really matters. Like when the guy picks up Pikachu and he's on his shoulder, like it feels like Pikachu has weight to it, you know? It doesn't just feel like, oh, I have like the green screen thing on a stick on my shoulder. No, they did a good job of like making it believable that these things were interacting with these characters. Now, something I didn't really like about the movie was I thought the acting was really hit and miss. Sometimes it was good. Other times it was like really bad, I thought, especially the writing, like paired with it. I thought some of the writing was kind of weak. There's this scene when you first meet like the female lead and she's coming down the stairs and she's doing like this long spiel about like I'm this person and I do this and that, you know, I'm real cool because of that. I was waiting for a freaking punchline. Like I was waiting for Justice Smith to be like, seriously, are you 10? But that line just didn't come, and I was like, oh, that's actually just the line and we're supposed to take that seriously. And people could argue, but it's a kid's movie. I've watched lots of kids movies. I've seen almost every Pixar movie. I've never felt that way in any of those movies, so that's a pretty flat argument. The acting was good sometimes, though. I feel like Justice Smith, I feel, was also hit and miss. I think anytime he's pushing an emotion, he does a good job. Like when he's sad or excited or angry or confused or conflicted, I feel like he does a good job, but it's like the middle ranges between those extremes I think he needs to work on. When he's just kind of like neutral, he came off to me like as a little deadpan, and it felt like, yeah, I'm just saying lines here. And, you know, those, like, awkward, romance, flirty moments I also thought were a little deadpan and could have been, because it wasn't an extreme emotion, which is what I think he did really well. I don't want to, like, rag on him too much, or the female actress as well. I forget her name. Because I looked them up, and it seems like neither of them have been in a whole lot of movies yet, so they're both kind of fresh faces. But I hope that they get a little better at those kind of like middle ground, neutral-ish kind of emotions. And some scenes I think is a combination of everything. Like one scene really sticks out to me where I think like the editing and performance and writing all could have been better. It's the inciting moment where he gets the phone call and learns of a distressing thing, and he just turns to his friend and kind of deadpan says the thing that happened. He's like, oh no, and it just felt like it didn't really strike me that he cared enough about what just happened. If I did that scene, I would have had him just not say anything, just stare deadpan, like complete silence after hearing what came on the phone, and then transition. I don't think you needed any dialogue after that. Compare this to another adaptation, one of my favorite movies, The Departed, which is a remake of a Chinese film. The scene where Leonardo DiCaprio and Matt Damon are on the phone with each other for the first time, and they don't say anything, and it's a really tense moment. In the original version, there was a music track playing. Martin Scorsese opted for just absolute silence, and it made the film so much more tense in that moment. So sometimes less is more. Now, on the plus side of acting, Ryan Reynolds is brilliant in this movie. He carries the whole film, I would argue. Everything that comes out of Pikachu's mouth is either well-timed, or kind of funny, or it's hilarious, or it's just well delivered. Ryan Reynolds is a fantastic actor, and I feel like everything that came out of his mouth, Pikachu I mean, didn't really feel on par with the writing of the whole movie. I thought the writing of the whole movie was kind of like average, but some of the things coming out of Ryan Reynolds' mouth was just like really good. So it kind of makes me feel like there's a little bit of improv, and I'm really glad if that's the case, because that means Ryan Reynolds had a little bit of creative freedom with this, and that was definitely a good decision because it really helped the film get through some of those clunky scenes. Because the scenes were like she's coming down the stairs, she's saying all the dumb stuff. Pikachu's not there, and I don't think he was, at least. And it's just like I'm just waiting for the scene to end. But any of those like kind of awkward, flirty scenes that I felt kind of fell flat. Ryan Reynolds was there to kind of like remind you that you're here for Pikachu and that there's still something worth watching on screen, at least in this scene. There's a couple of twists in this movie that I'm obviously not going to spoil, but I want to say, like, the big one I saw coming like a mile away. Am I the only one that like I felt that was like there's a part when it's like, oh, that's a thing, okay, well, obviously I know this is gonna happen now. Oh, excuse me. But the thing is, like, the actual ending, there's this one like unveiling of a certain thing. Like there's a shot where like it's really low to the ground, you hear a line, and then it like pans around and you see like this thing. I thought that was like really well done, even if I saw it coming, and I thought the ending was like really, really good. And that's another thing that I strongly felt about this movie. I felt like it was rocky in the beginning, but I felt like it gets like better and better and better as it goes on. When you start seeing like the action scenes, I feel like the interactions, when they're past like those, oh, the characters are awkward and learning to know each other. I feel like when the characters just know each other and they feel more comfortable talking to each other, I felt like that's when like the lines got a little better. There was this one dude that Brady and I were like cracking up at. He felt like a cartoon character, which I guess like that is fitting because it's like Pokemon. I know like some of the trainers you fight in Pokemon games are really wacky characters. It's like this dude doesn't have a shirt on. He's just got like this open a button shirt, and he's got like this Charizard. It's like a Pokemon battle, and he's just making like weird sounds and stuff. And I can't tell how silly that was meant to be. I feel like I was laughing at it rather than with it. But even still, it was like really dorky and enjoyable. So that's one thing like I would argue was like really, really good about it. The humor was surprisingly like on point. Not just because of Ryan Reynolds, but there's like a couple of like written jokes that had like a setup and a punchline that were just like really funny. The whole scene with Mr. Mime was really great, but like the one that just had me in stitches was like Justice Smith like got some gas on him or something, and then like he finds out he can understand Pikachu, and he thinks that's the reason. So he's out in public being like, "No one can understand him. Something went up my nose, and now I can hear this guy talk." And everyone's just like, I thought that was really funny. As for the plot, it felt really safe. It kind of like, yeah, we have a pretty basic plot. You're gonna go to this location, learn this piece of information, go to the next location. If you've ever played LA Noire. Am I saying noir? People say I say noir wrong. Noir. LA Noire. I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. I say a lot of words wrong. Oops. I'm just a big dumb idiot. But anyway, if you've ever played LA Noire, it felt like one episode of that, or like one mission in that, where it's like, you go to this place, you find this evidence, you go to this guy, then you interview this guy. It felt like a really standard, formulaic detective movie. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because it's like, we want this movie to be good, so we're just gonna play it safe for now, is kind of what it struck me as. So honestly, that might have been a good decision in the end, because if they try something a little more ambitious with like a property that's not theirs, and they're like, we want to kind of respect this, it might have kind of fallen apart. So it is pretty standard, and you might find it a tad bland because of that, but I do appreciate trying to be safe with it. That said, like, it really did feel like this was a product of love rather than a product of a corporation being like, I'm going to make some money because I got my hands on Pokemon. I mean, like, you saw the Sonic trailer. This felt the complete opposite. This felt like it felt like it was being produced by people that are familiar with Pokemon, that value Pokemon, and wanted to do it justice. And you can really tell by like how faithful it was to the universe, and I think I've touched on this a little bit before, but it really seemed to respect the rules of the universe. It really seemed to respect what these characters were. It didn't pretend they were anything they weren't. It just made a story around them that was original. And I think that, again, I think that was the best way of tackling this, taking something that we already know about and doing something original with it without straying too far from it. So yeah, I'd say in conclusion, If you don't really care about Pokemon, it's probably not really worth seeing, but if you do like Pokemon, you can go in knowing that it is going to be something you will enjoy, something that's competently made, well produced. It really was well produced, like the CG, while none of the characters really looked like they really belonged in real life, they at least felt like they were really there interacting with the characters, but also like just some of the shots in this movie were really nice looking. The cinematography was like pretty dang good, and the colors, oh, the colors, like, a lot of it's shot at night, and it's kind of like that neo-noir kind of look. If anybody remembers Nightcrawler, kind of similar look to that movie, where they have, like, a little more color with it. Like, it's not just the standard, like, teal and orange kind of neo-noir colors. It's like, you get, like, a lot of, like, greens and purples and reds, and just lots of beautiful colors for like those rainy scenes where like it's reflecting off the pavement. And since they are doing a sequel, I think I read about like they are already in talks doing a sequel. If I had some things that I'd like to see from that, just stronger writing and stronger acting. That's really all. And maybe like slightly more ambitious plot, because they did a safe one. They kind of know that they can do it and be faithful and do it kind of well. So I'd say like, yeah, just try something a little wackier, a little crazier, a little bit more out there, and just strengthen those other little parts that were, I thought were a little weak. And hopefully get Ryan Reynolds back, because he was fantastic in the whole thing. And again, give him the creative freedom that it seemed like he had with doing some of those lines. When Brady and I were coming out of the theater, I don't know if like theaters in the US are like this, but Cineplex is the chain where I live in Canada. And there's always like arcades there, and you can play games. It's the kind of arcades where you earn tickets. And I found out I was really good at the piano game, so I got 1,000 tickets easy. And I like posted to Twitter, which Pokemon should I get? And I was getting like a lot of like smart ass replies, being like, get Thor or Spider-Man, because there's some Marvel characters in the picture too. So like I was a smart ass back, and I said, just to let you know, the Pokemon are the little animal guys. But I ended up getting Pichu, and I tweeted about it, and I was like, hey, I got Pikachu. Obviously, bad joke, just to make people angry. People didn't seem to get angry though. People kind of knew I was just like funning with them. But yeah, I got this guy. I don't know what my point here was. I feel like I was gonna lead into a point about the movie, like regarding like pop culture and how it makes me buy the things. I liked it enough to come out wanting a Pokemon, even though I don't care that much about it. I guess I can say that much. But yeah, if you like Pokemon, go see it. It's definitely worth seeing. Again, it's not going to be like a Oscar-worthy good movie. It's not a fantastic film, but it's decent. It's like a B-, and that's enough for like what this is. So yeah, go see it. Think of any popular slasher movie, and what is the very first thing to come to mind? The villain, Jason, Leatherface, Myers, the big dude that kills people. That is always the driving component behind any slasher film. If you take him out, you don't really have a movie. I've been watching the Halloween series for the very first time, and to my surprise, that's exactly what the third film did. With Michael Myers super duper dead by the end of the second movie, they did something completely different for the third, and it was actually pretty cool, I thought. So with that mindset, I was more than eager to give Clock Tower Ghost Head a solid chance. The first thing to come to mind when you think Clock Tower is probably Scissor Man. He's the most iconic thing about the entire series after all, but with Scissor Man super duper dead by the end of Clock Tower 2, the series director, Hifumi Kono, was out of ideas. He just kind of felt like there wasn't enough material left to even do another Clock Tower game, so the next game went to somebody else, and they did something new. Something without Scissor Man. Since the game was quite a deviation from the first two between the lack of Scissor Man and the different director, they decided not to make it a numbered sequel, calling it Clock Tower Ghost Head instead, but even still, people from the West are going to know this one as Clock Tower 2. Since we never got the first game, they called Clock Tower 2 Clock Tower here, and then for whatever reason they decided to call Clock Tower Ghost Head Clock Tower 2. The developers specifically wanted this not to be a numbered sequel, but then the localizers slapped a number on it anyway. Over here was called Clock Tower 2 The Struggle Within, and instead of following Jennifer Simpson with a whole new wacky adventure to deal with, it follows a brand new character, a 17-year-old girl named Alyssa Hale, as she uncovers the mystery behind a curse that's affecting her family. Unlike the first two games, which are both considered cult classics, this one was widely panned by critics and fans alike, and I initially thought maybe it's just because it's the different one. Like Halloween 3, nobody liked that when it came out. No Michael Myers, what's going on here? No Scissor Man, what's going on here, you know? Like I said before, sometimes something different can be fresh because it offers something totally new. But that's not the case here, is it? No, I know this one's gonna be a train wreck, but if there's a story to tell here, I gotta tell it, so let's get started. Ooh, that CG looks a lot better. The models are much higher quality. The animations still look primitive, but it's easily a noticeable upgrade from Clock Tower 2. We start with this rainy scene of a pair of goons digging something up, I think? Okay. And then we get this little montage of our protagonist to kind of give us an idea of the game's gimmick, showing her flip between two different personalities, even murdering somebody during it, Jesus. This is the core idea behind the game, Alyssa's split personality. She's a kind and timid young girl, but there's a second spirit within Alyssa that'll occasionally possess her. Unlike Alyssa, he's not quiet and understanding. No, his name is Mr. Bates and he's ruthless, mean, and does not care what he's got to do to get his own way.
That little shit.
We then cut to a man named Philip talking to his wife, discussing whether or not it's a good idea to have Alyssa visit. He says something about the Maxwell curse before his wife leaves to let their daughter Ashley in, but after she leaves the room, we quickly hear a scream. Fast forward a bit later, and Alyssa arrives, but to her surprise, there's nobody there to greet her. In fact, there doesn't seem to be anybody there at all.
What was that?
And this is where we start playing the game. The intro's a lot more to the point this time. Instead of a long prologue chock full of bulky dialogue like Clock Tower 2 had, we just get a short and sweet cutscene and then we're plopped into the first scenario. I kinda like that a lot better, actually. Once again, it's that point and click gameplay, identical to the previous game. And once again, the game is compatible with the PlayStation mouse, which controls way better than the controller. That textbook I was using as a mousepad last time wasn't really gripping the trackball as well as I wanted it to, so I upgraded to a Nintendo Wii. You ever drop one of these on your foot? I did that a couple of days ago when I was playing, and it hurt like hell, dude. The Nintendo consoles are a force to be reckoned with. Anyway, I found the game feel to be a little bit smoother this time. It's easier to have the character run without stopping, and I found Alyssa would more accurately walk specifically to where I clicked than Jennifer would in Clock Tower 2. It overall feels just a little bit more responsive, you know, just a nice little quality of life improvement that should come with any sequel. So it's not long before we realize that things have gone horribly wrong when we start finding severed body parts laying around the house. Each one is surrounded by this strange yellow blood-like substance, as if the body was genetically mutated or something. Alright, so our goal here is to find Uncle Philip, figure out what the hell is going on, and avoid getting murdered in the process. Philip's 7-year-old daughter Stephanie has been possessed by the curse, and she wanders the house trying to kill anybody she sees. This is essentially what we're dealing with this time instead of Scissor Man, which is, well, okay, I know some people find spooky little girls scary, but I don't know, man, it's just never really done anything for me. A giggly little girl with a knife, I just don't find that very intimidating. I could just knock you over and win. Oh, look at that big ol' smile. No, okay, Stephanie, that's enough playtime today. Nap time. Similar to Clock Tower 2, you'll escape these encounters with her by either hiding or by finding a weapon you can improvise with and knock her out. Taking lethal means with her, though, is not an option, since she's kinda family to Alyssa, right? Now, Bates, on the other hand, oh, this guy doesn't care at all. This is where Alyssa's split personality comes into play.
Alyssa's asleep. I'm here instead.
Alyssa's got this magical amulet that keeps Bates at bay, suppressing him and keeping him from taking over. This will be in your inventory, and at any time you'd like, you can find a place to put it down, which will make Alyssa vulnerable to being possessed. If you don't have this thing in your inventory, Bates will come out and possess Alyssa when she encounters something disturbing. This will usually be a scripted story scene that's shocking in some sort of way, but otherwise you can have Bates take over by being attacked by an enemy. Just like before, you'll mash the right click on the mouse to avoid dying, but while Alyssa likes to dodge, Bates prefers kicking people in the face. When Bates has control, you can perform actions that Alyssa normally wouldn't, which includes using firearms. Yeah, this is the first game in the series to include guns. If you find one, you can pull it out when you're playing as Bates, and you can use them to shoot down your pursuers, immobilizing them just long enough to escape the encounter. But as a trade-off, Bates won't enter hiding spots, and he also won't use weapons you find laying around, which can be really frustrating. There's been times when I did not have a gun, and I couldn't find one, and I had to switch back to Alyssa to use a pickup. There's also puzzles you'll have to solve as specific characters. Sometimes you'll have to be Alyssa to get something done, and other times you'll have to be Bates. This ranges from things like Bates knowing how to disable security systems, or knowing how to pick a lock, or being badass enough to not get killed in certain cutscenes where Alyssa normally would. But since Bates is kind of a huge dickhead, there's gonna be a lot of times where you'll have to be playing as Alyssa to advance the plot instead. This is a really cool mechanic, and I really like how there's enough visual information to make it immediately clear who you're playing as at all times. Not only does the cursor shape change, but Alyssa will also have this purple aura around her as well. Now, this all sounds pretty good on paper, yeah, but in practice, this game is a confusing mess. It's got aimless level design, misleading information, and dead ends that can have you playing the game for hours just to realize you can no longer progress because of an invisible error you made hours ago. Oh my god, where do I even begin? The progression in this game is absolutely nonsensical. While the previous games had you finding key items that clearly led to another part of the level, Ghost Head just seems to do whatever it feels like. You'll basically walk around aimlessly until you trigger a cutscene or interact with some sort of object that'll make the next thing you have to do, no matter how unrelated, just appear in another part of the house, without anything telling you that. So what the gameplay boils down to is thoroughly searching the entire level over and over and over until you find the next thing the game spawned in, or the next door the game felt like unlocking. And the worst part is, a lot of times certain NPCs and interactable objects are only there if you're playing as a certain character. So if you've explored the entire level again as Bates and could not find the thing the game wants you to do, you'll have to pick up the amulet to switch back to Alyssa and explore the entire thing again. It is the most tedious thing I've ever played in my life. There's never any hint of what to do next. It's all just random and disjointed events. If you're not using a walkthrough, it can take hours to get through a single area. You know how long it took me to finish the first area with a walkthrough? About half an hour. It took me 4 hours without a walkthrough. It's almost like it's confusing by design, just to artificially lengthen the game. I got really hung up in the second scenario. You're in a hospital, and there's a scene where a doctor will try to kill you. If you do it as Alyssa, you get killed, but if you do it as Bates, you'll knock him away. I got to a point where I could not progress further than this. It seemed like there was nothing left to do. So, you know what I missed? There's 3 ghostly voices you need to hear, and after hearing them, you need to trigger this scene again, but this time someone shoots the doctor and saves you. So you get one of them by looking in this bathroom stall, you get another one by looking at this exit, and okay, both of those things are things you'd probably interact with by just exploring the place. But the third one, oh my god, you have to inspect this end table in one of the like 5 patient rooms that all look exactly the same as Bates. So if you've already explored the area as Alyssa, you're not gonna think to come back here as Bates. There is nothing significant about this room, let alone this table. If you hover the cursor over it, you don't even get the prompt. There's no way to know there is something here. There's nothing that would make you think to come back to this room as Bates. And I thought Clock Tower 1 had that one dumb click. This is a whole nother level of stupid. And the other huge problem here is that in this level, you can only trigger Bates at this point by getting attacked by a zombie. And Bates cannot use the hiding spots or the improvised weapons, so I couldn't become Bates and then escape the exit mode as Bates because I didn't have any guns, and you can't search objects in escape mode, so I couldn't pick up a gun until the zombie was gone. So the only way I could get rid of the enemy and then still be Bates was by going back and getting the amulet, switching back to Alyssa, finding a weapon to get rid of the zombie, then finding a gun as Alyssa, then getting attacked after finding another zombie, which, mind you, there's only a finite amount of zombies on the map, so if you killed them already, you just have to wait for like half an hour until one just spawns into the room. You get attacked by it, and then you use the gun as Bates to knock him out, but oh, oops, when you knock out an enemy, you automatically run to the last door you used. But since the last one I used confused, brought me to a dead end. I had to go through the door again, and the zombies in this chapter respawn in the same room you shot them. So it was still there, and I got chased again. I was running around for like 2 freaking hours trying to lay out the specific series of events I needed to occur just to be able to play as Bates while not getting chased by a zombie. Just so I could click on this stupid end table. This game sucks ass.
Yeah, that right there. That's exactly how I feel right now. How would I even know to click on that table as Bates to begin with? It's like finding a needle in a haystack, except nobody tells you there's even a needle to begin with. And why would you even let the doctor strangle you again as Alyssa anyway, since you already know doing that as her gets you a game over? There is no way anybody could possibly figure this out without a walkthrough. This game needs some sort of direction to nudge the player onto the right path. And even when there is direction, it doesn't give you enough direction. At the end of chapter 1, you have to burn this cursed statue, and I've got everything I need. I got the statue, some kerosene oil, a lighter, and there's a fireplace in the dining room. So I put 2 and 2 together, of course, and I go to the fireplace to set this thing ablaze. But guess what? It doesn't work. I try the lighter. It doesn't work. I try the statue. It doesn't work. I try the fluid. It doesn't work. So I run around for an hour looking for something I missed. But it turns out you can't do it unless the amulet is in your inventory, even if you have not triggered Bates yet. If you're still Alyssa without the amulet, it doesn't work. You need the amulet so a certain story scene could happen. But there's no way the player would know that. Come on, guys, just a line of dialogue would have done it. Like, I should probably grab my amulet first. That's all the game needed. But there's never anything like that. Instead, the game just expects you to do a series of arbitrary and unrelated things in an extremely specific order without giving you a sliver of clue as to what needs to be done. If you're going to make a point-and-click game, events must be linked somehow. You need to play test it and assure that players can understand and solve it. You need to make sure it makes sense. You can't have me look at a severed leg in a toilet and have that magically unlock a door 5 rooms away without telling me and expect me to know where to go. How would I know to inspect that door again if previously it was locked and there was no evidence of it ever unlocking? The entire fucking game is like this. Look right here. This is absolutely ridiculous. I have the key to this door, but it will not let me use it on the door until I did something unrelated first. Now I can do it. This doesn't make any sense. And what's a frustrating game without a frustrating action sequence? At the end of chapter 2, there's a shootout scene that has you clicking on zombies to blast them away. Sounds easy enough, right? But you're only given the prompt once the zombie's been on screen long enough, and only if you're hovering the cursor over a pixel-perfect, extremely specific part of the body. Look at this, I died because my cursor was too many pixels away from the sweet spot, and you have to perform this consistently enough to get through 30 zombies. Yeah, 30. I counted. But probably the worst thing this game does is how it'll lock you into a bad ending without giving you any clue that you've screwed up. The first time it happened to me was in the first scenario. You save your aunt from Stephanie, and if you don't lock Stephanie in the room behind you as you leave, which is a pretty obscure and different than normal thing to think of doing because keys don't normally work like that in this game, you're locked into a bad ending. And if you save after you do that, you brick your save file and you have to start all over. If you did this, your aunt's gonna be found lying dead on the balcony, and interacting with her, gives you the bad ending. Okay, so I reload my save file and I'm like, I'll just not interact with her. I'll find a different way to progress the plot. But I looked around for 2 hours before I looked up what to do, thinking, okay, what am I doing wrong here? And I found out that since I didn't lock the door, I could no longer progress. So I started the whole game over because I dicked over my save file. Alright, so I lost a couple of hours of progress. So big deal. It was like, what, 4 hours? That's nothing. I've gone through worse before. In the same game. There's another one of these that this game is notorious for, and buddy, I was one of the suckers that fell victim to it. So after playing this frickin' game for 3 days, I'm at the final level, level 3, and I walk into here, and there's a big old blood puddle on the ground, so I'm like, okay, I go up and inspect it, and a samurai falls through the ceiling and kills me. I don't even know what just happened. It turns out that the samurai armor put on display in the house in the first chapter, well, you have to interact with it specifically when you leave this bathroom after finding a key item in it. If you do that, it'll come to life and chase you throughout the house, just like Stephanie. It's just another obstacle to avoid. Though that seems like a trap and something you wouldn't want. So how would you know you need to do that to finish the game? Either way, I didn't know about this. I inspected it dozens of times throughout the first chapter and it never came to life because I didn't do it at the specific time in the game's progression. So if you didn't trigger this event, once you get to the last chapter, all of the doors you need to go through are locked and the only one you can go in is this one. The one that gives you this middle finger of an ending. So my save file got dicked over again. This is prankish game design, and not prankish in a good way either. A good prank makes somebody feel like a fool when they realize what's going on. A bad prank is when you're just mean to somebody, and making somebody play through the entire game just to realize their save file got bricked by something they did at the very beginning and had no way of knowing. That's just downright mean. The worst part is that the game doesn't tell you it's been bricked. Imagine playing this back when it came out, before the internet was mainstream. You'd be walking around for hours, wondering what to do with no way of knowing you can't finish the game now. This isn't just bad game design. This is evil game design, like the game's new director was possessed by Bates when he made it.
The little twerp. I'll kill her.
Oh, if there's one thing I must admit I do genuinely love about this game, oh boy, is it ever Bates. Every scene where he comes out is so damn satisfying. Kicking people in faces, even stabbing people in the chest when Alyssa's conscience couldn't even let her think about doing something like that. But Bates, oh, he don't care. He just does things. It is the ultimate satisfaction. Being a helpless little girl, being strangled to death with nothing you can do about it. And then Bates comes out and he starts cussing and kicking ass.
Back off, bitch.
What the hell?
That little crud bitch.
Oh my god. He just called the 7-year-old a bitch and kicked her in the face, and then he stabs her in the chest. Oh my god. Oh my god. Bates rules, dude.
That's the way I do it.
Every time Bates would take control, I found myself both laughing at the campy and stupid animations, but simultaneously cheering at the screen. These
Pa din po.
Bakit?
Po kasi, pressure po kasi madami pong magagaling. Sumayaw, ganun po. Kasi first time ko din pong makapunta sa dance studio. Tas,
Pero alam ko naman di kayo nagpakulit.
Oo naman. Lahat naman naaaral eh. Kahit first time mo, pag naaral mo yan, makakasunod ka.
Okay. Ari,
Ito may tanong ako sa inyo girls kasi alam naman natin na ito yung siguro first
So ikaw lang.